Do it down camera 9.
Happy birthday, Joe. Oh, no, wrong. Oh, no. Happy birthday, Joe. Older and wiser.
Love it. Bringing the love here on Sky News Breakfast. To the papers and the Times. Millions of teachers, nurses and civil servants could be offered higher pay, but is there a caveat?
Yes. The higher pay caveat is you get a lower pension. So this is a model that's being offered. It's not been costed or approved by the Treasury as yet. I wonder whether it's on the front cover of the Times because it gives everyone a chance to talk about it. Politicians can kind of get a sense of how that lands for people. So the principle would be that you get a higher salary, but you get a lower pension. Now, of course, for teachers, they currently get employer contributions of close to 29%, same for the civil service, very similar in the NHS. So that's a pretty hefty contribution for people in kind of middle rank salaries. You're getting close to your working salary as a end of life pension. And the argument is the cost of living crisis means that actually more people want the money now or need the money now. If you want to pay for a rent, put down a deposit for a mortgage, pay for, you know, caring for older parents, kids, all the rest of it, all the stuff that really costs you money in the big chunky middle bit of your life, that's when you want the money. And this might have a big impact on recruitment and retention.
I was just going to say that. You know, teachers and getting more teachers into the job.
That's the aim of it.
Starting salary.
But it comes at a cost, of course, because how can we fund our old age?
Well, the flip side of it is that people will be living longer, possibly with what the clinicians call comorbidity. So you might not be well. And at that point, let's be honest, probably the health service might not be in that great a kind of state of repair, so that people are having to fund a lot more of those costs themselves. So is it wise because you hand over the money to the person and say, you choose how you spend it, invest it, save it, and if you want to save a little bit more, but then common sense tells us that people spend it rather than save it.
One of the take-homes for me, and I'm sure for the millions or tens of millions of people working in the private sector in this country that don't get given state-backed pensions, is obviously there is the state pension, but this is a different form of pension, that we have to try and invest in our futures. We have to remember that, even though the cost of living is extortionate for so many.
The flip side of this is, of course, that the cost is then brought forward for the Treasury. So, in principle, it costs the taxpayer about the same because you're paying the person wages rather than pension money. But the Treasury has to fund more of the wages now rather than pay pensions in 40 years' time. It's really interesting. And I think, certainly for me, if I was thinking about a career in teaching, a slightly higher starting salary and then that accruing as I go would definitely be
very attractive for many people getting in that first job into teaching in particular. Matthew, take us through the New Year honours list. And the Daily Mail has Sarah Lancashire, Sir Stephen Fry, and then that picture of that former England manager, Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, the Mirror. The Mirror is more positive than the Daily Mail today, because the Daily Mail has been putting the boot in, as we were discussing in the last hour, to Sir Sadiq Khan. Not everyone's cup of tea for a night. We'll leave that aside because I want to focus not even on Gareth Southgate. I'm a fan. I think he deserves it. Lots of people will argue that he's being rewarded for failure because he didn't win a major championship. In fact, he's our second most successful men's football manager of all time. If we can't reward him, who can we reward? But I want to focus on, in inverted commas, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And this honours list recognises so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people who are doing real good and making a real impact at a local level but also a national level. And let's pick out among them Julie Devey and Carol Gould, I hope I've pronounced their names correctly, who are co-founders of Killed Women, a group of people whose female relatives have been killed by men and they become OBEs. This segues into a campaign that The Guardian have been running throughout 2024, which is to focus on women who have been killed or alleged to have been killed by men. And this is an epidemic in our society and something I don't think we focus nearly enough on.
Yeah, so that front page that you refer to, Matthew, is The Guardian. And in recent years, they're saying that a woman has been killed by a man every 3 days. in the UK, which is stark.
Well, it's horrifying, and if you look at in some branches of the media, broadcast, newspapers, there is a relentless focus on asylum seekers, on illegal immigrants. We don't look nearly hard enough, in my view, at ourselves.
Marianne?
I think the other thing that I really commend The Guardian for running this campaign on, to report on every single case, is that most of them don't become household names that kind of top the news agenda, and that there's kind of an ever-rotating cycle of photographs and speculations on what happened and why they were there and how much blah, 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 all the rest of it. Generally reserved for young, pretty women who are white, basically. Lots of other victims kind of get overlooked, or there's about 20 minutes of attention and then we all just move on. And actually stopping to recognise the fact that these are individual tragedies, but part of a much wider systemic issue in our society that affects everybody is really, really important. And also to focus on the fact of the woman who's been killed, not the story of the man who has been charged or alleged to have done the killing.
But we men have to look at ourselves collectively and ask ourselves serious questions. Doesn't mean that we're all violent or that we're all domestic abusers, but we have to try to do better, to claim some sort of collective responsibility to change things, not for the crimes that have happened, but to foster a different environment so that these sorts of horrors don't occur in the future.
Yeah, there's
Jess Phillips, by the way, has been doing critical work. She's a woman,
such an
but she's been doing so much in
conversation.
Cabinet
Yeah.
to try to halve violence against women. If we could get to there, it's something.
Yeah, and I think there's so many components to it. It's about how we raise boys, how we talk about the casual way we talk about violence.
And who's influencing boys?
Exactly, yeah. But also that kind of that wider picture of the systems that should be there to not only support and prevent attacks and harm coming to women, but also to support would-be potential offenders to change the way they're thinking, to change the way they're behaving, and also that kind of that piece about the role of other men, the bystanders, the guy who's standing next to his mate as he's denigrating.
Well, we saw that, didn't we?
girl.
And this is
Actually,
aside.
you speak up.
It's
You
aside.
always speak up.
You know, the Giselle Pellicle trial, and how lots of men were coming to the house saying that they didn't know what they were partaking in, but none of them decided to talk to the police. And it's about that bystander making sure that a voice is heard.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So key, isn't it?
And also remembering that we can't other this. We can't say that these monsters over there, it might be someone in our family, it might be a next-door neighbour.
It was a journalist, it was a baker, it was a nurse, it was a teacher. It was a community.
That's
that
what I
kept
mean
it
about
secret.
looking at ourselves.
Yeah, important conversations
Yeah,
to be
really
had.
important.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention today. We're going to do a bit of a gear change, and we're going to go to the Scotsman, because as we've been talking about all morning, Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled, outdoor Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled. And it's caused upset for many, particularly small businesses, and for the many people that are travelling to Scotland to partake too.
Yeah, that's it. Thousands of people descend on Edinburgh for the annual celebrations because of the risk of both high winds and particularly flooding.
Yeah.
The celebrations, the outdoor celebrations have been cancelled, although obviously indoor venues will still be going on as planned. Check your travel, make sure you're safe, all the rest of it. The same in Blackpool. They haven't cancelled the party, but they've cancelled the fireworks because of health and safety risks.
We know so far that London, the fireworks display in London, is going ahead so far.
Yeah,
It feels like it's become a much bigger thing in the last couple of decades or so. Fireworks and celebrating out together in public, but you can have a lot of fun at home.
You can.
Well, that's very true.
It's true.
And I've got two young people at home. We'll be celebrating the New Year at 8 o'clock. They will think
there you
it's
go.
midnight.
Very
of course,
sweet.
Of course.
My wife and I would be having a glass of champagne as we normally do, but she has got about 10 days to go until, God willing, our second baby is born, so no alcohol tonight.
Oh, congratulations to the
Maybe it'll come
Stafford
early.
household.
Could come early. Could be a New Year's baby, yeah.
So let's move on then to something that perhaps you won't be doing, and that's clubbing. And it's the Financial Times. Tell me about this. It's party's over.
I absolutely love this story. So Watergate, which is this famous Berlin dance venue, is shutting its doors. This is like an iconic dance venue. Tonight is its last night. It's doing a 35-hour party, but it has become the most recent victim of this Clubsterben, the death of the club.
Which is saying something for Berlin, because Berlin is surely these days has been like the capital of clubbing. And as you said, it's sort of all-nighters, all-dayers. It's like Ibiza.
And this is a trend that is recognised, seen around many of the kind of major cities. In Melbourne, more than 100 clubs have closed over the past couple of years. In New York, this is an interesting thing, more parties are now being held, like dance parties, that start at 5 p.m. and finish at 10 p.m. And they thought it would appeal to millennials who... are you a millennial?
I don't think so.
Maybe too young.
I don't think anyone in this studio is a millennial.
But I used to love clubbing. London had an unbelievable clubbing scene when I was sort of becoming an adult.
Well,
in the late 90s and early 2000s.
So the thinking was that this would suit, you know, people who are feeling slightly older and you feel a bit more rickety, you know, the next morning if you stayed up till 4 or 5 a.m. But no, apparently it's kids in their 20s who are kind of like clean living. They want to have fun, but then they want to go to bed.
You can club and be clean living, can't you? You can dance without doing anything bad.
Completely. But I think it speaks of a wider issue around the closure of iconic venues. So, for example, the Hacienda in Manchester. I lived there for 11 years, and I'd walk by the Hacienda, which was obviously closed, but turned into flats and a car park. And it's that sad decline of, as I said, venues that were quite iconic. And not so many people.
Yeah, not just the iconic venues, but all the small live music venues that are closing, which really is an epidemic. It's the kind of thing that we will notice after they've all gone. And it's a real problem. It's those little venues that give musicians a start, that enable people to do a side job, but also play music, find music that they love, build community. Yeah, go on.
OK.
Just very quick. I've been desperate. We wanted to get this in for the last
one more thing. Yeah, we've done like three attempts at dogs, haven't we? The one thing is that the way we do that, instead of just kind of wringing our hands going, oh, no, it's terrible, is that we do have to go to these places, not just kind of bemoan them. Like bemoaning independent shops, but then doing all your shopping on Amazon.
I hear your point. OK, Matthew, over to you.
It's just that the Icelandic sheepdog has become, I think, is it the 224th pedigree dog in the UK.
Say that again.
The Icelandic sheepdog, which was a star of Henry V, one of Shakespeare's great plays, has now been recognised as a pedigree specimen. And this is incredibly exciting.
OK,
although you were pointing out that pedigree isn't necessarily such a good thing, certainly not in human beings, because it would imply inbreeding, whereas inbreeding in dogs gives you pedigree. Well, they can be more vulnerable, I think, pedigrees. We have got pedigrees in the form of Cocker Spaniels.
Cute.
They're lovely dogs.
Do they suffer?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think
so.
No. Because, these breed standards that the Kennel Club established, it's a very, very Victorian project to standardise your animals and then to enhance certain features or aspects. So that's why you end up with bulldogs with very, very short noses or dachshunds, the sausage dogs, with really short little legs, and they end up suffering because of these particular breed standards, because you select individuals that have that particularly exaggerated feature and you breed them together so you get more exaggerated.
But we can celebrate. Look at this. Look
it's cute.
What a wonderful dog.
I mean, if it's a healthy dog, then by all means, get yourself a pedigree dog. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with
Bill Lambert, who's a spokesman for the Kennel Club, is delighted to recognise the Icelandic sheepdog because it gives more choice, and even wider choice when trying to find the right dog, is how he put it.
I say to Bill, there's nought wrong with a mongrel.
We will leave it there. It's been such a pleasure to have you. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you, Leah, and to you.
Thank you for your company at home too. Do join us after the break. We'll have all of your day's top stories.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance.